We are going to start with William Jensen. His opening hand, you're going to see Gideon Blackblade. Venerated Loxodon and Teferi Timer on the top end. Adanto Vanguard in the opener along with Dauntless Bodyguard as well. So here's your first start. It's going to be a 2-1 for 1. My favorite kind of magic card, of course, and it's going to die. Ooh, well, I think we might see, is it 2 targets on this one? Deals 1 damage to target creature and Planeswalker, and 1 damage to that permanent's controller. So sacrificing that, Brian, means that William doesn't take
Does not resolve, so doesn't get the damage. You may be wondering why we only have the hand from Huey here, from William Jensen. Apparently some recording issues from Ben Stark's side, so we unfortunately don't have his perspective. So we're watching this as if we were playing from Huey's perspective without the information from Ben.
Which is actually kind of fun. We can kind of dive into how Huey would play each turn of every single game, as there is a 3rd land, that's the 3rd red source for maybe a 1st Goblin Chain Whirler, but no, there will not be one there. So again, the interesting thing about Adanto Vanguard here is here comes Gideon Blackblade, is that it actually does work pretty well with this card.
Yeah, Gideon with the Adanto Vanguard is pretty interesting, because the Adanto Vanguard, it'll deal damage to you in order to become indestructible. So the Adanto Vanguard can, if say Ben Stark wants to use the Fanatic Firebrand on it, he could essentially force you to pay the life, but then he would gain the life back from attacking with it. And this is a pretty dangerous attacker here. That, I was going to say Huey. I'm like, no, it's not Huey. It's Ben. Does not really have the ability to easily kill. We were talking about how, well, this is a weak card in the matchup, but it was actually going to, interesting.
So what's interesting about this is if he goes with lifelink and you attack, right, then Ben will go block,
right,
and you have to make your you have to pay 4 life, and then it will say, okay, in response to that,
true.
sack and shoot, and then it's like, do you want to pay 4 more life, and also you're not going to get the life. So I see why Jensen made that play as we head back over to Stark now. Stark with a 4th land, a couple of cards in hand. Again, we don't know what he has in his hand, neither do you, so we get to narrate a game as though we are just William Jensen, and right now I'm going no Chain Whirler. No Chain Whirler. I guess Chain Whirler's not the end of the world. Carnage is not bad. This is going to be the lightning version of that for you old school gamers. For the new school, it's 3 damage to target opponent, and that player discards 2 cards. So Jensen's going to lose a couple of cards there, but Gideon's still hanging out on 5. Adanto Vanguard's actually not looking too bad this game, and Legion's Landing, Brian, is the draw step.
Yeah, and Gideon, getting to just sort of start your turn with Gideon here is quite powerful. He can use the plus ability here. It's only other creature. You can't Gideon himself and give him lifelink, which would be devastating in this sort of situation. But again, crucially, that Fanatical Firebrand's ability to sacrifice itself is pretty important to prevent just this lifelink from getting Huey sort of out of range of Ben's possibility of really finishing the game with burn spells. It's interesting. It's possible from Huey's perspective, they actually just wants a Venerated Loxodon here. The Venerated Loxodon is an option. He could perhaps Gideon giving Vigilance, but then you're not really going to attack anyway.
Yeah,
there's a lot of options for Huey here, despite it seeming like, okay, well, you got some guys you want to attack with them.
And that's why this turn's taking a little while here for Jensen, is because he's got a lot to think about as he's going to resolve Gideon and make Adanto Vanguard indestructible again. I like this play quite a bit because now he's going to play Legion's Landing, which is going to be neutral on mana for this Venerated Loxodon. You pay a mana to make a creature, which means Convoke is totally fine. There's your 5 total mana, and now if you're Ben Stark, you may have to respond with that Fanatical Firebrand to kill that vampire.
Right, can't kill the Vanguard, but can kill the vampire, which prevents it from getting a +1/+1 counter and giving a 2/2 lifelinker, which again can be really difficult for Ben S to really be able to come back from. Does decide, okay, I'm going to fire this off. And he's losing his creature, getting rid of the token at least, but now he's quite far behind on this board.
One thing about white strategies is because they can be the pedal to the metal and get some work done, but they also do a nice job of building up a really, really nice battlefield. As here's a Rixmati Reveler that's going to enter the battlefield. It will cause Stark to discard a card and then draw one here in just a moment. So discarding a mountain looks like he might be flooding a little bit, but the white decks do a really nice job of saying, you know what, I'm going to take a turn off, make my creatures larger, build up a wider battlefield of more large creatures, and then I'm going to attack you with a bunch of creatures, because now these 3 creatures are more than safe to attack and transform Legion's Landing, which is very powerful.
And even the +1 ability on Gideon, he can choose, do I want just indestructible? So I can be guaranteed this ability. He can go with Vigilance to keep himself protected from a possible offense. Decides, all right, I'm at 16. I don't really need the life here. I just want to ensure that I have all my bases covered.
One thing to note again, too, here, as Gideon's been on the battlefield since turn 3, this is the 3rd activation of that card, so it's working its way towards its -6 of destroying a permanent, is that at no point has Jensen felt the need to select lifelink. He's already doing pretty well this game, sitting at 16 life against an aggressive red strategy. Stark's draw has been fine, but not great. Not sure how Stark's cards line up in this matchup. You see Viashino Pyromancer is going to jump in front of a Danto Vanguard. Nice thing here for Jensen is he has the option to say, maybe I'll pay life, maybe I won't. Looks like he will, and he is winning on basically all fronts. He's got the better battlefield, he's got more life to work with, and, you know, another mythic rare, so that's not so bad.
Yeah, I mean, in here, he has, because he does have so much life to work with, he can just easily exchange that for life to ensure that the Vanguard survives. And yep, there it is. Stark decides, all right, I got nothing. We didn't need to see his hand at that point to say, okay, what's going on? It's like, no, you got one card and your opponent has you dead.
We're going to get our eyes on Jensen's sideboard here. It looks like he's thinking about bringing in Spell Pierce, potentially Deputy of Detention as well. The blue splash for him is actually pretty deep, where it's been a little bit lighter for other players. A lot of counter magic here in Dovin's Veto, Disdainful Stroke. Actually even has the island to help with this blue splash.
Yeah, and a lot of players, you know, they don't really like to use their sideboard real estate for, well, real estate in front of lands. But when you do have a very heavy splash sideboard like William Jensen does here, they can be quite important, especially in a deck that generally has a low land count. So he only has 20 lands. So in the matchups where he is bringing in these blue cards, the 21st land can matter. The really important card here, though, for his sideboarding is the Baffling End. We actually barely had time to see him, put all 4 of them in right when he switched over to the sideboarding view, because that is, a card that can remove essentially any of Ben Stark's creatures for just 2 mana, and because Ben Stark doesn't have any ability to destroy enchantments as a red-black deck, has really no drawback.
Jensen, one of the very best players in the world, a former world champion, has won Pro Tours, all that good stuff. There's nothing this guy hasn't done. And so at the beginning of this match, I had mentioned that, I think the first card I would want to sideboard out is a Danto Vanguard. Williams only sideboarded out 1, has left a couple in here, so he believes that this card is actually totally fine in this matchup. If I have to defer my opinion versus his, I'm going to go with the guy who's playing. So I'm going to go with him leaving a couple in and believing that to be correct, and that's something I think we all can learn from, as it did look pretty good in that game. I will give it some credit there.
I didn't even notice that he had the Nicol Bolas avatar here. Just looking like a dragon god.
Ben Stark's still working on his sideboarding here a little bit. That's why you're going to see a bit of a delay here. But I do think this is somewhat favorable for Jensen. Stark does have a couple different cards in his sideboard that do matter, that are worth mentioning, most notably Lava Coil, but also 2 copies of Fiery Cannonade. I mentioned that because Jensen has access to the deck list, so he knows that those are coming. We want to make sure that you at home know those are coming, though you won't see them in his hand, but you will see them when they are cast, if they are cast. Hey, Fiery Cannonade, how you doing?
Just hanging out, chilling.
Interesting opening hand. 4 lands is a lot, but it does give you the ability to play all of your spells, and Baffling End's actually a pretty nice draw, I think.
Yeah. So the Legion landing on 1 does, crucially give him that lifelink creature, and he does have Baffling End as an answer to Runaway Steamkin, which is one of the ways that the red deck can just absolutely run away with the game. Aptly named that one.
Yeah, Runaway Steamkin is a very scary card for the white strategies to play against. If you can get it off of the battlefield right away or it doesn't show up, you're very happy, but there are games where Runaway Steamkin just does its thing. Treasure Map implies that Ben's going a little bit bigger here, Brian.
Yeah. So Ben has decided, he has these 3 copies of Treasure Map in his sideboard, and he's decided to go with a more controlling plan. He feels like, okay, well, my aggressive strategy doesn't really line up very well against my opponent's superior creatures on cost. So what I'm going to do is go to a removal route and try to win via card advantage thanks to Treasure Map. I wouldn't be surprised to even see possibly Angrath coming in from the sideboard to give him a little bit more. Maybe a little bit too aggressive in this particular matchup, but overall, definitely changing gears thanks to the Rix Madley Reveler, giving him sort of the card advantage to be able to do that.
Yeah, the thought process here is I can sideboard my deck into a longer game because you're not really going to sideboard into playing a long game alongside with me with counter magic. So Carnival is where things are going to start. Going to deal 1 to that and also deal 1 there. Now light up the stage on the cheap with the Spectacle. Couple of different cards here. It looks like we're getting a little bit of a look here at
Pair of
Ben's
lightning
hands,
strikes.
as there's a lightning
Those are
strike.
the face-up ones.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep. Okay.
The ones that came off the light of the stage.
History of Benalia up to 2, so you got another 2/2 Knight with Vigilance onto the battlefield. Curious to see how Jensen wants to move forward on this turn.
Yeah, I'm a little curious about Ben's decision to go with this this kind of controlling plan, because he is playing against a white deck with Legion's Landing.
Yes.
And if he is trying to go on a grind you out of stuff strategy, well, we've seen what Legion's Landing can do against, say, Esper control, and he has a less dedicated control strategy than that.
And I'll piggyback on top of that. We saw that Jensen was willing to play a longer game just last game. Setting up Gideon, not rushing things, not using lifelink, transforming Legion's Landing, not really in a rush at any stage of the last game. Doesn't appear to be in much of a rush this particular game. And Ben's card advantage engine there in Treasure Map, well, that's been dealt with via Conclave Tribunal. So
you were saying initially that you were a little bit surprised to the way that Huey chose to sideboard by leaving in all the copies, or most of the copies of Adanto Vanguard. If he's aware of Stark's plan to go to a more controlling sideboard plan, that makes Adanto Vanguard actually quite good.
Yes, it
if
makes
your
a lot of
life total
sense
is not under pressure and your opponent's trying to play a control strategy, Adanto Vanguard is fantastic. And looking at this game, it's looking pretty good. Stark with the treasure map getting removed by the Conclave Tribunal is now facing almost online Legion's Landing, and now a Loxodon picked up. These are getting even scarier.
Yeah, Lava Coil taking care of that first Loxodon. I actually like this play a lot by Jensen, which is, you know what? I'm not in a rush. I'm happy to play a longer game. I don't need to rush things. Let's make these creatures larger because they're going to be more and more difficult for you to deal with. So Venerated Loxodon will convoke via the Dauntless Bodyguard and the Adanto Vanguard. Here is Angrath, as you did mention, and that, to me, is not terribly scary. It's not bad. You're going to see him gain control. It looks like Adanto Vanguard.
To take the Adanto Vanguard, attack with it, and then it just dies to the Angrath. So it's at least a way to kill the Adanto Vanguard, which otherwise he was struggling with. And interestingly, does still have one loyalty against 2 4-power creatures. So if he wants to kill it, that's a pretty big commitment of his damage.
Spell Pierce, an interesting draw step here. It looks like Jensen's going to say Dauntless Bodyguard to the face, Loxodon over to the Angrath because of the difference in toughness. So Angrath will be taken care of. Some more damage will go over to Stark, who doesn't have many resources left. And this Spell Pierce, I'm not sure if it will work itself into the equation or not, as here's a Runaway Steamkin. And now a Mountain. So it looks like Stark is on ease. We head over to Jensen, who drawn a land and a Spell Pierce. Not great, but his creatures are larger. And so Stark is going to take 8 and fall down to 6. Hollow Fountain on the battlefield tapped. And for Ben, it's going to have to be a good one. That's not a bad start.
That's 2. And that can start things going with the Runaway Steamkin. But finds
Lightning Strike's okay.
Lightning Strike, okay. Yeah, you can Lightning Strike the Dauntless Bodyguard. That at least gets him out of range of being dead without chump blocking.
Steamkin's going to turn into a 3-3. I think we're going to probably see Ben attack here because there's no interest in really blocking, so you might as well get your damage through. So that's what you'll find. Going to knock him down to 9. A Plains is not a great draw for Jensen. Jensen was going to keep on attacking, obviously, but Ben could actually steal this game here. Plains is the play. Let's see what Ben draws. Huge draw step. Fanatical Firebrand. Okay,
well, I mean, that's enough to be able to attack with the Steamkin. You get to chump block with your Fanatical Firebrand on the Loxodon.
Well, this is actually great,
yeah,
right?
This is actually a great draw. He can attack, and now there's a chump block available that represents lethal.
Yeah, so you attack here for 4, put Jensen down to 5.
Exactly.
And then you block with your Fanatical Firebrand, shoot Jensen down to 4, and then Steamkin can attack for lethal depending on what Jensen draws. And if he even attacks, and a Plains means he might not attack at all now.
Right, so now this Loxodon, which was representing lethal, has to hold back because Jensen will die if he does.
Oh, this game has taken a turn. Another big draw step here for Stark.
Yeah, a lot of things that could be extremely good here. A 3 damage spell means he gets through the Loxodon and gets to get in with the Steamkin.
I like this.
All right, both coming. Yeah,
I was curious if he was going to make this attack, and I like this a lot, Brian.
Oh yeah.
This is always the fun thing when 2 great players are playing against each other because it makes Jensen make a decision, and he could make the incorrect one here. It's easy to say trade the 4-4 with the 4-4, but Stark may have just drawn a land. He may have just drawn absolutely nothing and wants to sneak in that point of damage and make this trade happen.
Yeah.
I guess this is actually a benefit of not seeing Ben's hand.
Yeah, now we get to we get to say, ooh, well, what's going on? From Huey's perspective, well, if that's a blank, I win. I could just block the Fanatical Firebrand and attack for lethal. If it's not, if it's a burn spell, I'm dead if I don't block Runaway Steamkin. If I make the trade, where does this game go from here? Am I advantaged? I have a land and a Spell Pierce. If you have anything, it's a Chain Whirler.
Which he did have something.
That's a big draw there. Stubborn Sentry, that is a chump blocker for Chain Whirler at this point.
That is a chump blocker, even though I believe, there is the City's Blessing. A 3-3 against a 3-3 first striker means we are in chump block territory there for my favorite little dino, Rhino, and Carnage.
And Carnage is going to end it.
That's active a comeback there by Ben
Yeah,
Stark.
that absolutely was. He was at 2 life and was able to parlay a Steamkin into enough pressure to keep you in the back foot and just attack for counter lethal after making the trades.
So now we go back to the drawing board a little bit here if you are William Jensen. Now he's thinking about bringing in Dovin's Veto. Looks like he's also brought back in that other copy of Adanto Vanguard. It was in the sideboard previously. Now it's in the main deck. Now it looks like Sky Marcher Aspirant is all of them are going to go out of the deck, it looks like. So Jensen's found a configuration that he is happy with, and Nicol Bolas is ready for battle.
And worth noting that these players aren't necessarily just changing their mind about how they want to sideboard. Often players want to sideboard differently, whether they're going first or second.
Yes.
Here, Huey lost the last game, so that means he's in the play this game. So a card like Dovin's Veto, which may be able to protect his pressure, is better than when he's on the defense.
Boy, this looks like that's going to be a mulligan, and this is going to be tough too. Now, if he's able to find a second land on the scry, this hand looks a little bit better, and he has found a plains on top, so that's not too bad. No blue mana, but a Dauntless Bodyguard to start.
And it looks like Stark has kept his 7 cards, so going to be looking to defend himself against the Bodyguard, which is a little bit of a irony. Bodyguards usually do the defending. But
Snubboard's going to come down, and now we'll see Bodyguard get into the red zone. It's 18-20 in favor of Jensen as we head to Stark's second turn. He started things off with a Blood Crypt that entered the battlefield tap. Now we head back over to Ben for an untapped Mountain, and perhaps we'll see a Runaway Steamkin on turn 2, or maybe even a removal spell. Again, he did keep his 7, and for Jensen, if you draw a third land, this game might actually be pretty darn easy. If you don't, things change quite a bit. Fanatical Firebrand is the play here for Stark. Is it a third land for Huey? It is not. It is a
it's another
redundant
expensive card too.
It
So
is.
now he's in an even worse situation because now Stark is going to have an opportunity to draw himself a card, maybe even play a Chain Whirler to take out this Bodyguard for free.
Yeah, Chain Whirler would be bad news here for Jensen if Stark has the third land and the very powerful Goblin Warrior. We're going to have to find out here as Ben's going to do a little bit of thinking. That's
It's not even just a
crucial
matter
draw step.
of. It's not even just a matter of the specific board state right now, but killing this Bodyguard with a Chain Whirler further strands the Venerated Loxodons in hand. Every creature in hand, or in play rather, is mana toward the Convoke effect of the Venerated Loxodon. The fact that Ben is attacking here really suggests to me that he has a Chain Whirler because he wants to take out this Bodyguard for free. I would think that if he did not, there'd be a good chance he wanted to just, I'm just going to Lava Coil. Okay.
A little surprising.
That is. I'm very curious what the rest of Ben's hand is if this is the road he's taking.
Another 3. Brutal here for Jensen. His hand is incredibly powerful. This is one of the problems with this Azorius or
Got
Mono White
20
aggro
land.
deck is you are a 20 land deck. Yes, Jensen has a 21st one in the sideboard, but he doesn't need the island in this particular game since he's not sideboarding in many blue cards at all. But you see the power level of the cards, just can't deploy them.
And then a 4th land for Stark, but nothing else. He's just this is kind of brutal for Huey here. Seems like he's got all the time in the world, but it's not really coming together for him.
It's definitely a strange game the way it is playing. As there's another copy of Dauntless Bodyguard.
It is a very interesting game to not be able to see Ben's hand for. It's like, what's going on over there? I mean, I could imagine possibly just hoping that Huey will commit more into a Chain Whirler because there has not been an opportunity for him to play a Chain Whirler on board multiple things. There's a Cannonade. Okay, well
That explains it a little bit.
Yeah, well, this only kills the one. The Fanatical Firebrand is a pirate. That's why it does not die.
I mean, it's possible Ben is just flooding very badly here.
Yeah, it is possible.
And his hand is very reactive, and he doesn't want to use his removal spells on a stinky old Dauntless Bodyguard.
Yeah, and this is the sort of thing that Huey has to be thinking about. It's like, okay, given the way that this is playing out and the fact that Bennis has not really played anything, what does that mean his hand is?
Now there's a third land. So step 1, let's get in the attack step. Let's see if there are going to be any responses. There will not be, so now Stark is down to 10. Third land, History of Benalia is a great place to start. Jensen's hand is stacked. Lands are ideal. History of Benalia is going to be able to provide creatures over turns, so that's a really, really nice way to get things started. Now back over to Stark. That's a 6th land, 4 mountains along with a Blood Crypt and a Dragon Skull Summit, and that active Fanatical Firebrand that I don't think is going to be attacking. Wouldn't surprise me, Brian, if there's another copy of Fire Cannonade in hand.
Could very well be. That would explain allowing. I think what we're seeing is history of Benalia triggering. Is he waiting for the history? I'm a little bit confused. What's going on? Yeah, there's a trigger. He's waiting for that.
Surprised.
Cannonade.
Yep.
I was like, what's going on? The Loxodon. Okay.
I really like starting here because it's in theory your most expensive card,
Yep.
and you just want to get one of these on the battlefield because even if there is a Fiery Cannonade in response to this, you still have a 4/4, and that's okay.
Oh, no Cannonade. Wow. So now this board is really getting out of hand for Ben Stark. His deck does not have any sweepers that can really deal with three toughness creatures. He only has the 2 copies of Cannonade as well, so there's no opportunity to double Cannonade to clear this out. And crucially, his deck is on that Rixmati Reveler plan. He's playing the Rakdos deck. He does not have Experimental Frenzy, so there's no way for him to just have that crazy turn with Steamkin Frenzy and just absolutely unload in the board. This is what he got.
Well, what I'll say to that is you want to talk about a crazy turn. I think we're about to see one here. Banalish Marshal is going to come down. That's going to pump up all these threats. Jensen going to play a Plains after that, and I think we're going to see them all come to the red zone. Love it. Makes it easy on Magic Arena. There's one button. I use that one a lot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, get them all into the red zone. And now Stark's life total is already pretty low at 10, so now he's got to figure out the best blocks. And more importantly, even though Jensen was struggling hitting his land drops, 15 life is a lot.
Yes.
It is a lot in this spot. A game that looked like Jensen was going to lose when he missed his 3rd land drop for consecutive turns, but again, that's why we play out the games. Stark started to flood a little bit. His draw didn't really come together like it did in the last particular game, and now he's facing down these enormous white creatures with really no great blocks available.
I mean, here, at best, he can hope to double block to trade, to chump block, and maybe he's got a spell to use with his runaway Steamkin. Let's say he has a Lightning Strike, can Lightning Strike the Banalish Marshal. That at least takes some damage off the board. You can get some blocks in to soak up some damage and trade a couple of his creatures away, but they're still just not. And he can't even do that with the Dauntless Bodyguard.
This is a lot.
Yeah, there's just so many ways that Huey has Stark in really kind of a pincher situation.
Well, for our new Magic players at home that are kind of new to what's going on here, here's a Cannonade. So this will change some things potentially in this instance. His Runaway Steamkin's going to actually grow into a 3/3 and outlive the Cannonade. So a fun, flashy animation, going to deal all this damage to all these various creatures. I think we might see Fanatical Firebrand finish off the Banalish Marshal here. It depends on what Ben wants to do. It felt like he was setting up Cannonade for a very, very long time there, but wasn't able to get a ton done with it.
I feel like he must have just drawn the Cannonade or would have played it in response to the lock setup.
That's a very good point. Yep, you're right. Otherwise, he's very greedy. Here is a light up the stage.
This is what I'm going to set up.
That is a Blood Crypt. This is a Fanatical Firebrand.
Yeah,
just a little too low
close
power.
to enough here.
It'll be a Plains here from Jensen to start. Getting Blackblade's not a bad place to go next. The powerful Planeswalker is going to plus and give something, some lovely ability, be it Vigilance, Lifelink, or Indestructible. And I'm just not sure how Ben gets it.
Not even get the chance.
Yeah.
The Stark concedes. Understandably so, given the state of that. And it will be William Jensen who takes